Greetings and welcome to a review of Yellowface by Rebecca F. Kuang. So this is a novel from 2023. It's allegedly a satirical novel about racial diversity in the publishing industry in America, and it also uses a lot of words like metafiction and social media when people are talking about it. It's a first-person narrative with a protagonist called June Haywood. And from the back, this is one hell of a story. It's just not hers to tell. Athena Liu is a literary darling, and June Haywood is literally nobody. I never read any of the rest of the book, by the way. That's the back of the book, by the way. That's as far as I got. I've been struggling with this book, and I know that it has won a large number of awards. The Goodreads Choice Award is one. Not an award I've ever been particularly impressed by so far, and this has not enhanced that experience. But there's other ones like British Book Awards and American Book Awards. There's a heap of book awards. Because it had such a good reputation, I've heard so many people loved it so much. So many people have said, this is a good book, you should read it. And so many contexts and so many times. When I found it at a garage sale a while back, I picked it up. A garage sale, by the way, to all of you Americans out there, is the Australian version of the yard sale. We don't sell our yards, we just sell our garages. And hanging around in our yard is usually a bit too hot and sunny, so we put the things for sale and ourselves in the garage. I think I paid about $5 for it. It had such a good reputation. The person who was selling it also told me it was a good book. And I had picked it up 2 or 3 times, and every single time I just failed to engage with the very first pages. So having made it to page 7 after 5 attempts, limpingly, I finally got the audiobook. I thought I'd listen to the audiobook. And who was it narrated that? I think it was Helen something. The narrator was really good. But it didn't speed me into this book anymore, because essentially this book may be a very good book, but it's not a good book for me. I have a number of problems with it. But the first and foremost is that the writing seems incredibly superficial. I don't think the writing is particularly good. Now, its genre would be what I call mainstream fiction. It's a normal scenario, a normal person. There's nothing particularly unusual about it. It's not science fiction. It's not fantasy. I'm told that there might be a supernatural element later, but I do not care to wait for it. And a lot of people, what they want from a fiction book is an easy book to read, one where you don't have to look up any words, where it just all flows. And for those people, this might be a good book. If you're not a reader who's read a huge amount of fiction, maybe you've never encountered this particular trope before. So our main narrator, June Haywood, I rapidly started thinking of her as Jealous June. She's a truly horrible person. Unlikable protagonists are fine. I can do them. There's a few books out there with unlikable protagonists that are wonderful. Bluebird, over there, by Malcolm Knox, an Australian author. Unlikable protagonists out the wazoo, but a really good book. If your main character is unlikable, however, you need to do certain things to make the book land with the reader, and those aren't there for this reader. After a while, I stopped thinking of her as Jealous June and started thinking of her as Moaning Myrtle, the only character that really I could equate her with. The first chapter, which I did finally get through by the assistance of the audiobook, is June's hanging out with her acquaintance, Athena Liu. Athena Liu is a very successful actress. She's written books that were picked up straight out of uni. The two of them have known each other from a creative writing class at university. I think it was their first class in university. I know Americans call it college or school or something, but yeah. And they published their first stories in the same university periodicals, and then after uni they both published a couple of short stories, and then Athena wrote a groundbreaking novel, was picked up by all the mainstream media and got a career, and June had to get a job teaching students for their English exams. It was hard to care about June. It was very hard to care about her because essentially, whatever else you might say, she's still quite a privileged person. She's able to go to university, which you have to pay for in America. So she's not POV. She hasn't had a bad life or bad opportunities. And the reasons for her being so absolutely horrible to this other woman are obscure. Now, Athena Liu is actually an interesting character, and I would have liked to see more of her than the first chapter. And apparently, maybe her ghost appears later. I'm not sure about that. Some reviews say that she's there, but whatever. But June loathes her. And it might well be that Athena thinks of June as her best friend. So, horrible person. Thoroughly unlikable. Anyway, they're hanging out together in that first chapter, and I will spoiler this. But the problem with this book, a really big problem that I had, as well as the writing seemed incredibly basic and superficial, was the fact that everything is telegraphed. You see it coming. There are no surprises here. Everything is unsurprising and predictable. The level of predictability for me was immense. So the two girls are hanging out. Athena's just been given a streaming service deal, I think with Netflix or something. And they're celebrating at her place. Then they get very, very drunk and get into a pancaking eating competition, during which Athena chokes on a pancake. I think this section is what some other reviewers who loved this book were thinking of when they said it's darkly humorous. I didn't find it darkly humorous. I found it awkward and embarrassing to read. So Athena's choking, jealous June tries the Heimlich maneuver, eventually an ambulance is called. Why not instantly, I ask you. There's a lot that just really doesn't make a lot of sense there, and it's not funny. This is meant to be satire, it's meant to be humor, it's meant to be engaging. I kept just turning off the audiobook or putting down the real book. I didn't care. I never cared from one paragraph to another what was happening, usually because I knew it in advance. Now, let's talk about this main trope here, which has never been my favourite trope. Ordinary or ugly girl. I don't see any indication that June is ugly, by the way. She seems like a perfectly normal human being. But ordinary, ugly, less successful girl is incredibly jealous of beautiful, successful girl. This is a trope I've never loved under any context. There are times when I can bear with it if the writing is really spectacular. But at the best of times, it'll never be my favourite trope. And it is in fact the trope that taught me how to DNF a book. Back in the early 2000s, I was not capable of DNFing books. I've learned since then, clearly. But then there was a book called Wraith by Lee Tulloch, and I'm sitting there thinking I would rather try to contort myself into a pretzel to chew my own toenails than continue reading this, and I finally managed to DNF a book. And it was the exact same trope. Ugly girl, jealous of beautiful, successful girl, is a horrible, horrible person. It's like, sure, people do get jealous. People are horrible. Those things are real. But you're going to need to give me some reason to bear with a truly horrible person to see their downfall. I don't care. I don't care at all about June. Anyhow, so June steals Athena's manuscript. I don't even think that is spoiling. I think it's pretty well known. She steals her manuscript and passes it off as her own. And this is where the whole satire of the publishing industry is meant to start coming in. But does it, really? I'm not sure that it does. For a start, one reviewer who only gave this book 2 or 3 stars points out that R.F. Kuang probably never went that publishing route. She was a social media success and then was picked up. She may never have gone that route of sending off lots of manuscripts, having to deal with editorial assistants, all these things. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but she will have a perspective on American publishing that clearly I don't, and perspectives on being an Asian American in publishing that I don't. The thing is, if she's trying to do things there, talking about rogue white privilege or rogue Asian ticking the boxes on diversity privilege, or whatever it's trying to do, it doesn't do it well. I don't know what she's getting at. I don't know what things she's trying to satirize. I don't understand. She has not allowed me to understand. She has not written successfully the things about the publishing industry that she wants to make points of. So, while it's meant to be a satirical discussion of cultural appropriation, the Asian American writer is taking the voice of June Hayward, who is a white woman, stealing the manuscript of an Asian American writer, and it feels to me very much as though the author sees herself considerably in both of those women. So I'm not sure what's trying to happen here. I've managed to make it to chapter. I was determined to make it to page 100, but I haven't. I'm only partly through chapter 5, and I don't care. The details of of June dealing with the publishers who picked up this book don't interest me. They have not been written in such a way that I find them interesting. I find the writing very basic. I think it's superficial and lacks depth. No criticism of anyone who loves this book, because many people seem to. And I think if this is a trope you haven't encountered before, if you're not familiar with unlikable and almost certainly unreliable narrators, then this probably will be a book you will enjoy. If you're not a big reader and you don't rely too heavily on exceptional writing skills to get you through a story, if you just want a story that's straightforward, this might well be your book. But none of those things apply to me. And while I may have liked it about 3 decades ago, there isn't enough for me as a mature reader to relate to here. Finally, a word about the cover. Excellent cover. I've always liked it. I thought it was... The simplicity of it really draws you in. Once you've seen it, you're not going to forget it, and you're going to remember the book. I don't know how much of the book's success is actually due to that. Now, when you try to read about the book cover, it says cover design by, looks like Al something and Harper Collins. It's written incredibly tiny on the back. Can you even see that? It's right there under the barcode. Should have got out a magnifying glass to read it. And the cover illustration is by Shutterstock.com. So I'm thinking this is an AI cover, which doesn't endear it to me either. But here's the thing. This cover came to represent to me the entirety of the book, because it's all wrong. You've got 2 different eyes, and I at one stage got geeky enough. Hello, chicken. I got geeky enough that I got out my measuring tape and I actually measured the pupils, because they were so asymmetrical that I had to wonder. So this pupil is approximately 1 centimeter in diameter. That one's approximately 2 centimeters in diameter. That pupil is looking in that direction, and that pupil is looking in that direction. Once you see it, you never unsee it. And that superficial asymmetry is very representative for me of the reading experience. It was asymmetrical. I was not able to separate the narrative from the author's voice, and I'm not sure that they are different. I think she's trying to do something, and it may work for some people, but it's not working for me. Exactly what she thinks she's doing, I don't know. The framing and context are lacking to tell me what this book is trying to say to me. It isn't telling me. Now, later, once I'd DNF'd it 2 or 3 times and limped through, I think, to chapter 3, I actually did go online and read a couple of other reviews for it. Almost every single one talks about it being meta. I don't want meta. I want a book that's well written that I can understand. Sorry about that. It's just my reading style. And apparently, somewhere in the middle of this book, which I hope to never have to reach, it starts reading basically like a Twitter stream. I don't twit, I don't tick, I don't talk, and I don't X. So I don't want to read a Twitter stream. But apparently what that is meant to symbolize is how social media what social media can do to a book, and the negative things that can happen there. And I'm sure there's plenty of debates that could be had about this, but I'm not convinced that this is the author who can do that for me. Plus, if I'm correct, her success came originally from social media, so that seems just a little bit off. So yes, I'm not saying it's a bad book, but I am saying it's a bad book for me. I'm sure there's people out there who will enjoy it, and good luck to them. You do you. I've got one for sale if you want it. Let me know. Finally, I think the only way I can really best describe this is in the words of the great philosopher Granny Weatherwax. Can't be having with this. And I can't. But if you think it's going to be a good book and you really want to read it, ignore me, read it anyway, tell me how wrong I am. I can't wait. I can't wait to see how many people tell me I'm wrong on this one. But whether I'm wrong or whether I'm right, and whether it's this one or whether it's a different one, you should definitely read good books. Bye.